a church, synagogue, or mosque, compared to just over 50% a decade ago. Amy Asen is with the Union for Reform Judaism. She says one way congregations are reaching out to younger people is by participating in events around racial injustice.
If we can stop thinking about how do I get people to show up for services and start thinking about how can we help bring the Torah to people's lives in ways that help them answer those questions, I think we can be very relevant.
For Pastor Rob Smith in Minnesota, being virtual had an unexpected benefit. Current members encouraged new ones to join from Iowa, Wisconsin, and New York. Donations went up, and he plans to stay on Zoom even when things go back to normal. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
And I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Law Firm.
I'm Wayne Hogan. A company's cell phone policy can protect your employees and your bottom line. Our distracted driving presentation for the workforce can help.
Learn more at waynehogan.law.
Baptist Health knows managing your health is still important during COVID-19. Secure online appointments are now available through our Health Place On Demand app 24/7 with trusted board-certified ER and family physicians. More at baptisthealthplace.com.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
Much-needed rent relief is on the way to the First Coast. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, we'll have details on federal money flowing to our area to help people struggling to keep a roof over their heads. As we speak with United Way of Northeast Florida about that. That's just ahead, then later.
Local and regional papers like the Times-Union are still struggling to develop the revenue that they've lost to Facebook and Google and Craigslist and the others.
Mike Clark, the retired editorial page editor of the Times-Union, reflects on nearly 50 years in local journalism and the future of our free press. It's all ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corva Coleman. Drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech say they've tested their COVID-19 vaccine in children aged 12 to 15. They say the inoculation proved to be safe and strongly effective. NPR's Joe Palca says the study was small, just 2,260 adolescents.
Half got the vaccine and half got the placebo approximately, and there were 18 cases of COVID among all the participants, but the good news is that all 18 were in the people who did not get the vaccine, the people who got the placebo.
NPR's Joe Palca reporting. Most COVID vaccines are given to adults, although Pfizer and BioNTech's inoculation can be given to 16 and 17-year-olds. The drug makers will now ask the Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization to provide the vaccine to children aged 12 and older. A Minneapolis firefighter who saw former police officer Derek Chauvin kneel on George Floyd's neck is expected to return to the witness stand today in Chauvin's trial. From Minnesota Public Radio, Matt Sepik reports Genevieve Hansen told jurors on Tuesday she had wanted to intervene.
Hansen, who's also trained as an emergency medical technician, was off duty last May 25th when she saw officers pinning Floyd to the street while he was handcuffed. Hansen testified that she could tell immediately that Floyd was not getting the medical attention that he needed, and officers refused to let her help.
I had already assessed that he had an altered level of consciousness. What I needed to know is whether or not he had a pulse anymore.
Additional medical testimony is expected. Defense attorneys argue that Floyd's poor health and drug use led to his death, not Chauvin's actions. Prosecutors say Chauvin pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
The U.S. State Department has ordered non-essential employees to leave Myanmar as that government continues to attack protesters and militias from ethnic minority groups. More than 500 people have been killed since the Myanmar coup began nearly 2 months ago. Michael Sullivan has more from the Thai-Myanmar border.
The Karen National Union, or KNU, says the military launched more airstrikes against territory it controls in the east of the country, even as protesters continued to defy the military with anti-junta protests all over Myanmar. Thailand's prime minister insists several thousand people who crossed into Thailand over the weekend to escape the bombings have now returned home voluntarily. A KNU official says at least 6 were killed in the aerial attacks Tuesday, adding that Myanmar military units are advancing into KNU territory on all fronts. The deteriorating security situation prompted the State Department's decision to order non-essential staff and family members to leave. For NPR News, I'm Michael Sullivan in Mae Sariang on the Thai-Myanmar border.
This is NPR.
9:04 now. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Michelle Coram. A former janitor at a Clay County high school has been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for hiding a camera in a girl's locker room. 45-year-old Jason Brian Goff of Stark was sentenced last week in Jacksonville federal court. In August 2019, 2 schoolgirls reported a suspected camera at Clay High School in Green Cove Springs. Officials found a cell phone taped to the inside wall of an unassigned locker. The phone's video showed girls changing clothes along with a shot of Goff's school ID badge. He was arrested and acknowledged trying to film the girls. Sea turtle nesting season is about a month away in North Florida. Conservationists are urging beachgoers to keep the shoreline dark and obstacle-free over the next several months. Robin Trindell with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission says it's also important to pick up any trash.
It can attract predators like raccoons. If they leave a lot of excess food or things, the raccoons will learn to travel to the beach for that food source, and then they'll learn to dig into the turtle nests and actually eat the hatchlings or the eggs.
Trindle says the beachgoers should keep their lights off at night because sea turtles look for dark spots along the sandy shoreline to lay their eggs. They are largely endangered in Florida. A 20% chance of rain or thunderstorms later today. Cloudy in the mid-80s this afternoon. Right now it's 71 degrees in Jacksonville. This is WJCT News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Procter & Gamble, maker of Align Probiotic, a daily supplement to support digestive health, containing a probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists with 20 years of research. More at alignprobiotics.com.
Much needed rent relief is on the way to the First Coast. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Just ahead, federal money is flowing to our area to help people struggling and keep a roof over their heads. We'll tell you how you can access this help. Give us a call now. It's 549-2937. Then later, the Times Union's Mike Clark looks back on 50 years in local journalism. First, though, we've got the latest numbers on the pandemic. The state reports that the number of COVID cases increased by 5,000 again yesterday. Hospitalizations ticked up, and so did deaths. The death toll in the state stands at 33,338. At the same time, 5.7 million Florida residents have received at least one dose of a vaccine. Now, as we reported yesterday, the Duval County mask mandate ends today. So starting next month, there will be no mask order for this county. However, public health officials are urging everyone to stay masked up because cases continue to rise, and there is a very contagious and deadly variant that is active in Florida of coronavirus. The pandemic, of course, has sparked a terrible recession with people struggling to make ends meet. So this morning, some good news. The City of Jacksonville's Housing and Community Development Division will distribute more than $4 million of federal funds to Duval County residents who can't make their mortgage payments due to a loss of income related to COVID-19. The Mortgage Relief Program starts accepting applications this week. Jeff Winkler is head of Basic Needs Community Impact for the United Way of Northeast Florida. He's got a lot of information about this, and he's on the line right now. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Melissa. Great to be with you today.
Great to have you. And as we talk about mortgage relief for Jacksonville, give us a call, everyone. Let us know if you're struggling. Let us know your questions. 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. And our Facebook page is open. So this can't come soon enough, Jeff. $4 million coming into town to help people keep a roof over their heads. Tell us about this program.
Well, the mortgage program is actually a program that's getting ready to launch this week by the City of Jacksonville. United Way is also partnering with the City of Jacksonville to administer a $29 million emergency rent assistance program in which United Way is distributing $23 million for rent assistance. So I'm happy to talk about that, but for anyone who has mortgage questions, I would definitely refer them to the City of Jacksonville.
I'm so sorry I didn't phrase that accurately. Tell us what you guys are doing and tell us a little bit more about the relief that people can access.
Yeah, so the Treasury has released money that Jacksonville has applied for and much needed money for rent assistance. And we have been so humbled and grateful that the city has selected us to partner with them and JEA to distribute $23 million in assistance for rent, and JEA will distribute $5 million in assistance for utilities. And this is just such a much needed program right now. We're thrilled to be able to provide this relief alongside of our wonderful partners.
And this begins today?
Actually, the application period started on Monday, March 29th, and it will end on April 9th at 6 p.m. And there's been quite a bit of activity. We already have over 4,400 applications that are in progress and close to 2,500 that have been submitted. And we're just beginning to review those cases. We've got about 250 of those cases already in review. So we are off and running.
Okay, so tell us more about how people can access this assistance, Jeff. Who qualifies, what the criteria is. There are so many people that need help.
Yeah, so the qualifying criteria for this program, Melissa, is eligible applicants must be a U.S. citizen or legal resident alien. They must also be a resident of Duval County, which does include the beaches and the town of Baldwin. And they have to be delinquent on the payment of rent or certain utilities. They must also be part of an eligible household, which contains three different criteria. They must be behind in their rent. They must have to be able to demonstrate that they're experiencing a COVID impact, whether it's unemployment or loss of income. They must have a past due utility or rent notice, and they must also have a household income that is less than 80% of the area median income. So all of that information can easily be found. The best way for folks to get that information, because there's quite a bit of it, is if they were to text the word apply to 211-904, and then they would get links to both the application as well as the FAQs.
549-2937 to join the show. Tell us more about how things really are out there and the kinds of stories you're hearing from people about how they're just struggling to keep body and soul together right now.
Yeah, so we knew that even before the pandemic, Melissa. Over 40% of all households in Duval County were already struggling to make ends meet. And when the pandemic hit, it just pushed so many more of those families beyond that tipping point. So one of the bellwethers that we use to rely upon to understand community need is 211, and that's United Way's 24-hour information referral helpline. Last year, our amazing 211 team answered over 117,000 calls, which represented a 113% increase year over year. The top needs presented by callers traditionally are for basic needs, your utilities, food, and housing. And this past year, 63% of all calls placed to 211 were for these basic needs. So we know that even prior to the pandemic, families were very, very much struggling, and the pandemic has only exacerbated that situation.
And these are families that would never have asked for assistance before, right?
A lot of these families are first-time callers, and I think another interesting point to make here, Melissa, is in addition to providing information and referral, 211 also serves as our local crisis and suicide hotline. And what we saw this last year is a 298% increase in our crisis calls. And that just really further indicates the emotional toil that the loss of income or inability to pay bills has caused on our families. And keep in mind, this is all during a time in which moratoriums have been in place to stop the majority of evictions. So one can only imagine what that would have looked like if these moratoriums were not in effect.
We're speaking with Jeff Winkler of United Way of Northeast Florida. Give us a call as we talk about help that's available out there right now for families struggling to make ends meet. 549-2937. So let's clarify what you said a minute ago, Jeff, because there's more than one thing happening here. The city of Jacksonville has announced an application process for a mortgage relief program. Up to 6 months of delinquent mortgage payments or $7,500, whichever is less. That is happening, and that mortgage relief program is getting underway this week. At the same time, over where you are at United Way, you are also helping people. So we accidentally conflated these two things. Can you clarify once again for people listening that there is more than one avenue out there for people to get assistance?
Yes, and this is a rather unique situation for us where there's an abundance of resources available at one time, which is fantastic, but it also can be a little bit confusing. The assistance that United Way and our partner agencies are providing is for rent only, and we do have a total of $23 million to distribute for that. For anyone who is interested in learning more about either of these programs, they can contact United Way 211 or visit the City of Jacksonville's website, and they will have information and the differences for each of those programs up there. We understand it's a little bit confusing right now.
Yeah, but nearly $29 million in rent and utility assistance is going out from the city alone. I mean, it is just remarkable how much help is flowing into this community. It's been a long time since these kind of dollars, Jeff, were coming into a community for this kind of assistance. It's historic.
It really is, and you know, we're so grateful to have had such a rich working relationship with our agency partners, Jewish Family Community Services, Catholic Charities, Beaches Emergency Assistance Ministry, Downtown Ecumenical, and Wealth Watchers. We've been doing this work in post-disaster environments, whether it was Matthew, Irma, or COVID, and we're thrilled to be able to use the expertise of this group to respond to this unprecedented need. So, you know, there are unprecedented dollars that are floating around, but the need matches that level. And so we're grateful to be in a position to provide immediate relief to these families right now.
Can you talk a little bit, too, about the fact that the former wife of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man, basically, she has a lot of money of her own, and she actually chose you guys, the United Way of Northeast Florida, along with nonprofits across the country, and gave you a sizable amount of money earlier this year. How is that impacting your operations in terms of helping struggling people in this community?
Yeah, talk about a blessing. I mean, normally nonprofit organizations like ours are doing scenario planning for loss of income. We're in the unique position where we're looking at how we can invest these dollars most wisely. Basic needs, which we're talking about today, is just one area of focus for United Way. We also have a focus on financial stability, economic mobility, and race and equity. So we're really working closely with our partners and with other individuals to best understand how these dollars can have an impact, not just immediately, but for the long term. So this is a unique position that we're very grateful to be in.
Here's a comment on our Facebook page from Aubrey. She says, while I agree that people behind on rent and mortgage need assistance, there are many other households teetering on the edge who would also find relief. Can't you open this up to everyone who meets the income requirements, not just people who are delinquent on their payments? You know, Jeff, I'm sure there are thousands of families out there in that exact situation. Can you talk a little bit more about these requirements, who meets them, and there probably are people that don't quite meet them but could use the help.
Sure. And what we would encourage everyone to do out there, everyone's situation is unique, and we understand that all too well. And sometimes these guidelines are a little bit difficult to understand. So we encourage you to check out the FAQs, see if you do qualify. And if you don't, contact United Way 211. There are other community resources out there that we can connect you with. Just because this program may not be an exact fit does not necessarily mean that there aren't additional resources in the community that could assist those households.
Did you start developing this before the tent city sprung up in downtown Jacksonville? How long has this been in the works?
We got the notice, I think, in late February. Around February 22nd is when the mayor held his initial press conference, and that's when we really started to hit the ground running in developing this program. So it's been a little bit over a month in the making right now.
Okay. 5492937 to join us. Here's an email from a listener. We are not homeless, but we are really struggling just to make ends meet. Some days we pay one bill and we don't pay the other one. Some bills are just going unpaid, she says. You know, that's the unfortunate position so many people are in. They have to decide, do I buy food this week or do I pay the utility bill this week? And they just can't, they have to make terrible decisions, terrible budget decisions.
Yeah, you said it, Melissa. It's heart-wrenching when you hear about the decisions that families have to make. And we really want to let folks know that there are resources out there. We may not be able to help everybody completely, but we want them to know and understand that United Way 211 is available 24/7 to help connect individuals to those resources. So it's not just these big federal programs that are the only option for individuals and families. We have a vast network of community partners all throughout Northeast Florida, not just in Jacksonville, who are providing critical services every day. And even though, say, financial assistance may not be available for rent or utilities, but we can connect families with organizations who can provide food to help those households with their disposable income stretch further. So there are other ways. In many cases, when you're talking about families who are in need, it's really like looking at a puzzle. And how can you identify what the most critical needs are, and what pieces can you put in place to make sure that they're getting that help? It's very challenging, it's very tedious, and it's very stressful for our callers, and we recognize that. And we want to be here for them, and we certainly encourage them to call us at 211.
Call United Way at 211, and well, let's one more time explain to people how they can access this rent relief assistance beyond calling 211. Can you give that information one more time, Jeff?
Sure. The easiest way for folks to get information on the program, the rental assistance program, to apply and get a list of FAQs is to simply text the word apply, APPLY, to 211-904. You can also visit United Way's website.
Check it out, United Way of Northeast Florida. Thank you so much, Jeff Winkler with the United Way. He's head of Basic Needs Community Impact there. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Melissa. It's great to be with you again. Thank you.
And again, the city of Jacksonville is also working on this, making more than $4 million in federal funds available to Duval County residents who have been struggling to pay their mortgage. Their mortgage relief program is up and running. It will provide up to 6 months of payments of $7,500 or whichever is less. You must be the owner and occupant of your property. Federal guidelines require recipients to fall below 80% of the area's median income. So a family of 4, you've got to have income below $60,000 a year. They began accepting applications for this at 8 o'clock this morning. Go to myjax.custhelp.com or call 630-2489. And there's more about this on our website at wjct.org. Much more still ahead on the show. Meanwhile, later in the hour, a new food and wine festival is coming to the First Coast this spring. We'll tell you how you can enjoy that and eat, drink, and be merry coming up in May. That's later and also ahead.
local and regional papers like the Times-Union are still struggling to develop the revenue that they've lost to Facebook and Google and Craigslist and the others.
The TU's Mike Clark reminisces on his 50-year career in local journalism and how you can support a free press. We'll be right back.
Groove to Electro Lounge Radio around the clock. Allow the sounds of chill out, down-tempo, new jazz, and reggae to relax and inspire you. Download the WJCT app or visit wjct.org/jacksmusic to start listening today. It's the biggest stories affecting the Sunshine State. Hi, I'm Melissa Ross.
And I'm Tom Hudson. Join us Friday for the Florida Roundup.
Each week at noon, we interview newsmakers and people from across the state discussing the stories and issues that affect your life. What's driving the conversation in Florida?
Join the conversation on the Florida Roundup.
Every Friday at noon on WJCT News 89.9. For the best music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, tune into 89.9 HD3, the WJCT app, or jacksmusic.org. We've got your music on Anthology on 89.9 HD3. Welcome back. Well, after a nearly 50-year career at the Florida Times-Union, former editorial page editor Mike Clark is being honored at a special event this month next month, benefiting the First Amendment Foundation. I spoke with Clark about his tenure at the TU and the challenges to a free press today. Take a listen. Hey, Mike, good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Well, glad to be here.
And it's so exciting for me to give you this platform to talk about your nearly 50 years of serving this community as a journalist. I didn't realize you'd been at the Times-Union that long. When did you start at the Times-Union?
Fall of 1973, I came here to report on JEA right after the Arabs embargoed oil, and JEA's electric rates went to some of the highest in the country. So for about 6 years, I wrote stories about JEA practically every day for the afternoon paper, the Jacksonville Journal.
Wow. That takes us back to the energy crisis days for those of us who are old enough to remember that time.
Yeah.
So you were this young cub reporter, new to the paper in the early 70s. Did you ever think that you'd stay as long as you did?
No, you never do.
Yeah.
I mean, my first job was in Springfield, Illinois, and I was a cop reporter and then a city hall reporter, and then I left after 2 years, which is more common. And I got hired in Jacksonville sight unseen. I didn't even have an interview, so I didn't exactly know didn't know Jacksonville that well. And this is a story that's been told a million times around here. You arrive in Jacksonville, and slowly you begin to love the place.
Yeah.
And you bond with a community. And so, we've spent over 2/3 of our lives here in Jacksonville. This is home now. So no, you don't expect to stay. Most people in media don't expect to stay at a place that long. But I've been unusual in a lot of ways, in that I realized when I was in high school that I wanted to be a journalist, and most people don't stick to one career their whole lives either. So I understand I'm pretty unusual.
But in a good way. What a legacy. Yeah. You spent 15 years as the paper's reader advocate, so you were representing the readers. Then you became editorial page editor.
making sure that the opinions expressed in the pages of the Times-Union inspired dialogue, provoked discussion. And that, I would guess, was a really challenging position, particularly in recent years. How tough could that get?
Well, it's gotten terribly tough in the last few years because of the intense, toxic partisanship going on in the general public, and I was kind of stuck in the middle of it. So I was trying to be, empathetic to all points of view, knowing that I had to draw a line. I mean, I couldn't allow people to put through fake news or mythology or things I knew that was wrong, but at the same time I'd have to explain to them why I'm not using it, that sort of thing. So this is pretty unprecedented in that lies had become weaponized and empowered by social media, and something that we never had to deal with in the past. It's pretty stressful, actually.
Yeah.
So,
how do you think journalists, particularly newspapers, local newspapers, should try to survive this climate? Because as you know, newspapers as a business model are struggling so terribly, and that doesn't serve their communities well. It doesn't serve a city like Jacksonville well.
We don't have any good answers right now. Newspapers with a national platform like the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal have the digital revenue to thrive in this digital economy. Local and regional papers like the Times-Union are still struggling to develop the revenue that they've lost to Facebook and Google and Craigslist and the others. So we're going through a very painful transition now, and I think everybody that cares about, the fourth estate needs to support their local newspaper through any way that they can, because I don't know how the democracy really survives if lies are weaponized the way they've been these last few years. It's very tough to have the energy to push back against all the lies, and I mean, so for 15 years is a long time to be taking complaints about journalism, which is what I did as reader advocate. But then as editorial page editor, I was having to deal with, pushing back against people that were writing letters that included, pure fallacies. And, I simply didn't have the time to deal with all of them as I used to as a reader advocate. So I think the entire country needs to do some soul searching to think about how we're going to, react to the loss of, aggressive, ambitious local news, because the revenue simply isn't there in recent years to support the numbers of journalists that we used to have.
Right. And, of course, recently all four living former mayors of Jacksonville did send a letter to the Times-Union's parent company asking them to invest more in local journalism, which was really striking to see. Here at WJCT Public Media, we are working to increase our commitment to covering local government along with a number of other areas of concern, because we see the need as well. And let me get to the fun stuff. On April Fool's Day, Thursday night at 6 o'clock, all of your many admirers will gather to hold a virtual celebration of you, Mike Clark, and your career. This will be a benefit, by the way, for the First Amendment Foundation, which is a perfect fit. It advances your commitment to open government and the First Amendment and a free press. Always a dicey proposition in Florida. So tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I never would have agreed to this if it were just about me. I mean, to be honest, it's pretty overwhelming what's been happening. I never went into this business to get this kind of tribute. So we're raising money for the First Amendment Foundation in Tallahassee, which does incredible, great work for the First Amendment. So, for instance, they're keeping an annual tally of how many exemptions there are to Florida's open government law. It's well over 1,100 now, over 1,000 exemptions to the public records and open government laws in Florida. They're also tracking 123 bills in the state legislature that can create more exemptions to open government. Without their sort of commitment, we would gradually be losing a lot of our openness that goes all the way back to the early 1900s in the state of Florida. So we are very lucky in the state to have some very aggressive sunshine laws, but we will lose them if we don't have groups like the First Amendment Foundation to keep the legislature from rolling them back. And so we're raising money to continue to support the First Amendment Foundation, that without them, there's nobody else that's doing that work. And they're incredibly effective in doing what they're doing. So they're actually stopping bad bills from being passed in the first place, and then helping to reform bad bills so that, some of the unintended bad consequences don't become law. So they're very important examples of bills that they're opposing. So, for instance, there's currently House Bill number 1 that would make it very likely that nonviolent protesters might be arrested because other people around are rioting. And we already have laws on the books against riots. And we saw in Jacksonville where nonviolent protesters were arrested and then not prosecuted because the arrest didn't seem to be justified by the state attorney. But then putting those into law is kind of scary for our First Amendment rights. And this is what the First Amendment Foundation is doing. They're helping to keep us informed and helping us push back against bad laws.
Yes, it's a worthy. You have my full-throated support on this. It's so important to support their work. So how can people register to attend this celebration of your career and also support the First Amendment Foundation?
Right. So go to the website for the Florida First Amendment Foundation. It's floridafaf.org, and then they'll see a way you can register for just $10 that goes to the organization and watch this hour-long, event. And to me, it's more important to pay to the First Amendment Foundation than to hear about me.
But a lot of people do want to hear. So I'm so glad to be able to talk about this. I mean, how do you compress 50 years of public service into 10 minutes of chat? You can't. So people need to register and watch this tribute to you. Mike Clark, recently retired editorial page editor at the Florida Times-Union. And again, that website for the Zoom to contribute to this, floridafaf.org, right, Mike?
Correct.
Yeah, check that out, everybody. Mike, congrats on a well-earned retirement, and thank you so much for all you've done for the city.
Well, thank you, Melissa. Your show is a must-listen to me, so I appreciate you.
Well, today, transgender and non-binary people worldwide recognize International Transgender Day of Visibility, a day for allies and advocates to show support for this community. At the same time, bills limiting the participation of transgender girls in school sports are being criticized for lacking scientific basis. As Danielle Figueroa IV reports, they also look a lot like model legislation that has been struck down by federal courts in other states.
Two of the bills being pushed through the legislature are, for all intents and purposes, bans on transgender participation in sports, particularly for transgender girls. The Senate version, sponsored by Lakeland Republican Kelly Stargel, allows transgender participation. The only catch is you have to meet the International Olympics Committee's participation standards, standards unlikely to be met by a high school student. The House bill from Sebring Republican Kaylee Tuck proposes a fix. Under that bill, a gender dispute can be solved by checking testosterone levels or examining a student's genitals. In a Zoom conference Monday, Kent Marrero of Q Latinx pointed out the similarities between Florida's bills and Republican-backed bills being pushed through the legislatures of at least 24 other states.
These two bills
are both model legislation. Like people have said, basically they're popping up everywhere, they're copy and paste, and they're being fast-tracked. Whether it's ignorance that's intentional or unintentional, if passed both of these bills would legalize discrimination.
Conservative groups like the Heritage Forum, Eagle Forum, and the Alliance Defending Freedom have made bills limiting transgender rights focal points of their missions. The Alliance Defending Freedom has pushed so hard against trans rights that the Southern Poverty Law Center declared them a hate group. Most bills making their way through legislatures echo Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which became law last year. The Idaho Press reported that original model was drafted and pushed by the Alliance Defending Freedom. Since then, the bill has been struck down by federal courts who found no basis for the law to exist. Senate Minority Leader Gary Farmer, a Democrat out of Fort Lauderdale, said legal challenges would immediately follow passage, costing the state millions.
It's going to cost our state millions of dollars to defend an ill-conceived and, I believe, harmful piece of legislation.
Both Stargell and Tuck have acknowledged that Florida hasn't had any cases of transgender participation in sports being an issue, but have said the bills are about keeping an even playing field for girls in sports. But Stargell's bill uses testosterone levels as a qualifier, and in a recent committee hearing, she admitted her own metric is a flawed one.
It's kind of mixed data with regards to testosterone specifically. We do know that testosterone makes a person stronger, but there is some overlapping. Females sometimes can have higher testosterone than some males. There's been an argument about looking at lean body mass as another measure, but I think it is clear across many of them that it's we don't have a concrete yes or no, this is the right path. And I think that's why you're seeing such an enhanced discussion on this subject across the country, because there's not a right or wrong answer on how to handle the situation.
Scientific American reported this month that there is no competitive advantage to transgender participation in sports. It also said the link between testosterone and increased athletic performance is a premise that lacks scientific validity. And the bills are seeing major backlash across the country. Some of the biggest education, medical, and child welfare organizations oppose the legislation. The NCAA is considering not hosting events in states that pass any anti-transgender laws, and major corporations have come out against them as well. Senator Farmer said these bills could have unintended, costly effects for Florida.
We're talking about companies like Facebook, Pfizer, Peloton, Dell, Amazon, Apple, AT&T, Hilton, Google. The list goes on and on and on. Companies like that are not going to see fit to expand their business operations in the state of Florida.
A bill similar to the model legislation attempting to ban trans athletes recently passed both chambers of South Dakota State House. But Republican Governor Kristi Noem has so far refused to sign it into law, saying it presents a legal challenge and would put the state at odds with the NCAA. I'm Daniel Figueroa IV.
Well, the nation's oldest city is getting ready to party this spring safely. They've announced the inaugural St. Augustine Food and Wine Festival coming up in early May for 4 days. You can expect celebrity chefs, artisans, farm-to-table delights, local craft spirits and beers. Lots of fun. Jan Gorley is one of the organizers and is on the line now. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Melissa.
Good to talk to you. So this is the first ever food and wine festival of its kind for St. Augustine. Tell us what's on the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. So I created the Savannah Food and Wine Festival in 2013 at an event called Whiskey, Wine, and Wildlife in Jekyll Island in 2014. And we quickly noticed that probably 60% of our attendees were coming from Jacksonville, greater Jacksonville area. And we said, oh, we've got to get a festival in Jacksonville sometime here.
Right.
So, St. John's Cultural Council and St. John's Tourist Development Council, Christina Parris-Stone was sort of the impetus behind reaching out to us. She saw right away the economic impact that Savannah Food and Wine Festival has in Savannah. So we started discussing this probably early last year. And due to COVID, we put kind of discussions on hold, and then their grant cycle came available, and we were very fortunate to be able to receive a grant to get this festival started, which is so exciting. we're seeing kind of the plan come to life. So I'm hoping that we're limiting attendance this year, but I'm hoping in 2022 we can really realize what the full capacity could be as far as the impact.
So limited attendance this year, and the dates are May 6th through 9th. This is
Correct.
happening at the World Golf Hall of Fame and the World Golf Village, Renaissance St. Augustine Resort. And you've got a lot of fun stuff planned.
We do. We have the dinner, the Hall of Fame Winemakers Dinner kicks everything off on Thursday, May 6th. And we were fortunate enough, again, to have celebrity chef, Food Network chef Manish Chauhan. She's a judge on Chopped. She's one of the guest chefs. She's also doing a cooking class that includes her new cookbook, Chopped, and two other really James Beard Foundation recognized chefs are participating, and then some local chefs. Michael Lugo with Michael St. Augustine, Brian Whittington of Preserved and Chop Shop, and then Josh Smith with Catch 27. We also have a huge barbecue event Friday night. It's called Smoke on the Walk, and it's around the Walk of Champions. And we've got famous pit masters throughout the Southeast, and we also have the guys from Urban Asado there with their grills, and they're calling it a live fire experience. So it should be quite interesting.
And this isn't just a food festival, it's a food and wine festival. So you're going to have lots of wine, spirits, beer, wine dinners, all of that fun spring revelry as well.
Yeah.
So fill us in on that.
Sure. So the big event on Saturday, the main event, has a VIP lounge, which is going to be catered by Greenwise Market. And then the general admission ticket includes your souvenir glass and unlimited beverage tastings. And there are over 200 varietals of wine, beers, and spirits. Pepsi is also on board as our official beverage sponsor. So it's going to be a fantastic 3 hours of live music, and we have RFID bracelets for contactless payment, so people will buy their bites that they choose to eat, and the beverages are all included. So we'll also have a demo stage with cooking demos from chefs. Just lots of fun stuff going on.
Let's talk a little bit more about the COVID precautions you're taking, Jan, because as you said, this won't be full attendance. People are starting to be vaccinated, particularly in St. Johns County where you're having this. A lot of seniors down there have had their vaccine, but what are the precautions?
Yeah, so the actual World Golf Hall of Fame was chosen as the site because we wanted to have expansive space for social distancing. And if anybody's ever been there, it's a beautiful site. It's, centerpiece is a lake, lots of room for spreading out. We will, of course, have the contactless payment, as I mentioned. We can't mandate a mask, obviously, but we are going to request that everyone wear masks, especially indoors. All of our events indoors, which would be the classes and the dinner and the brunch, will be held in St. John's Convention Center, which seats 3,000. So the dinner will be 200, so we have ample room to social distance and put, groups of 4 to 8 at a table, depending upon who arrives with their family or pod or, their group. And then as far as on the big events outdoors, we have hand sanitizing stations everywhere. We have signage. We actually have temperature checks in place if needed. We have some plexi splash guards for the exhibitors. So, just about everything that we're planning to do everywhere else in Georgia and other states in South Carolina, we're using those same health and safety measures in Florida.
You need volunteers for this too, don't you?
We do. We need a lot of volunteers. And these are fun jobs where people work for wine. So it's a great and fun experience to get some behind the scenes kind of intimate experiences with like Manish Chauhan and other guests, that are really well known. The winemakers, we've got Jan Stevenson, which she's a ex-LPGA Hall of Fame. Well, she is a Hall of Famer, but she's going to be there. Lots of great, opportunities from just working admissions to sitting at a table or greeting people, lots of different kinds of things.
Okay. I want to make mention of the fact that today is the last day to get discounted tickets for the St. Augustine Food and Wine Festival. There's a deadline today.
Yeah. So today is the deadline for winter discounts. And as of tomorrow, they'll be increasing, I think, another 15%. So it's a pretty good savings. And it's also an opportunity to kind of make sure you get a ticket, because some of these events are, I wouldn't say getting ready to sell out, but I'm pretty sure they will sell out. And because we are limiting attendance, where, once they're gone, they're gone.
Once they're gone, they're gone. So with all of that said, Jan, where can people go to snap up their tickets for the inaugural St. Augustine Food and Wine Festival?
Absolutely. StAugustineFoodAndWineFestival.com. And it's a really easy website to navigate. The volunteer button's right at the top if somebody's interested in volunteering. The buy tickets button is right at the top, so it's really easy. And all the events, the details on all the events are online.
It's the St. Augustine Food and Wine Festival coming up May 6th through 9th at the World Golf Hall of Fame and World Golf Village Resort. Discounted tickets end today, so get them now while they're hot. Organizer Jan Gorley, who's had an incredible track record around the Southeast organizing these types of events, so I'm sure it's going to be great. Jan, thank you so much, and we really look forward to it later this spring.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We really appreciate it.
A quick break, and in a moment, some more positive news and notes. A look at what's good this Wednesday here on the show. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Lee & Kate's Glass, family owned and operated for 95 years. Lee & Kate's Glass is your source for upgrading your home's glass, from shower doors and mirrors to windows and tabletops. Learn more at leeandkatesglass.com. Mayo Clinic. When you are searching for answers that can provide some clarity in the confusion and could actually change your life, you know where to go. Mayo Clinic. Learn more at mayoclinic.org/Florida.
I'm Jane Clayson. 10 years after the start of the Syrian civil war, the humanitarian crisis there is getting worse. The situation is especially bad in the notorious Al Hol camp, home to 60,000 people, 2/3 of them children. We'll speak with a Red Cross official who visited the camp last week. That's next time, Here and Now.
Today at 2 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, how giant tech firms led by Amazon are warping the economy and increasing inequality among population centers. ProPublica reporter Alec McGillis says some cities get robust job growth and soaring housing prices, while formerly prosperous areas are left stagnating. His new book is Fulfillment: Winning and Losing in One-Click America. Join us
today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
President Biden has repeatedly described the border situation as normal.
Truth of the matter is, nothing has changed.
But his own agencies are preparing for record numbers of unaccompanied kids arriving in the months to come. I'm Jen White, the latest on the struggle to find shelter and contain a humanitarian crisis. Next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, it's April Fool's Day. Maybe you plan on springing a joke or two on your unsuspecting friends and coworkers. Or April Fool's Day is tomorrow. Oh my gosh. It's been one of those weeks. After a year of grim news and tough times, a little joking around is always appreciated. We thought about doing an April Fool's joke this week for our What's Good Wednesday newsletter, but we just have too much actual good stuff to share. So here's our no fooling rundown of positive news and notes from the week. It's our What's Good Wednesdays, beginning with Shop Temporium in San Marco. They want you to be able to tell the world that you have gotten your COVID vaccine. So what they've done is they've stocked these really cute pins that say COVID vaccinated. They're created by local maker Wild Child Hat Company. You can order yours at their website and use the coupon code Temporium. Check it out and get pinned. Meanwhile, Memorial Hospital in Jacksonville is celebrating their triumph over a challenging year of pandemic. Next Wednesday, April 7th, over at Memorial, that's Beach and University area, they're going to display yellow flags outside the hospital as a way to remember the year that's passed and look ahead to the coming year with hope and optimism. I spoke with Frederick Jenkins, MD. He heads up emergency medicine at Memorial Hospital.
It's a celebration in a sense because we're going to look back, we're going to remember, we're going to acknowledge. But it's also going to be a celebration of optimism and of hope that has been brought by the emergence of the vaccine that's been so wonderful and has given all of us so much hope and has given us a path forward out of this pandemic.
Dr. Jenkins also pointed out to me that Memorial Hospital in Jacksonville actually treated this area's first COVID patient. It was on March 11th of 2020. It's been a terribly tough year for all of the ER docs and nurses. So look out for those yellow flags next week and take a moment to give thanks to our brave and hardworking healthcare workers who have gotten us through this year. And let's take a moment to give a few shout outs to some other bright spots around town. Women making big moves in transportation were recently recognized by the WTS Northeast Florida chapter. Shout out to their Woman of the Year, Transportation Executive Janet M. Walker Ford. That comes to us from the North Florida TPO. They are, full disclosure, a sponsor here at WJCT. U.S. Representatives John Rutherford and Michael Waltz attended a special event Monday at the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum to announce a federal bill that would create the nation's oldest port national heritage area. This could potentially bring millions in federal matching grants to the historically significant site. Take a moment to visit the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Museum if you ever get the chance. It's a great place. Well, this spring, Big Fish Power Yoga in Jax Beach is moving away from a traditional studio model, and they're launching an innovative new way to experience yoga, partnering up with local businesses to offer a regular schedule of on-site classes that will be live streamed on a new platform. They have lots of interesting partners for this: Hotel Palms, Congaree and Penn, Surfer the Bar, and others. Check it out at their new website, livebigfish.com, and say namaste. And finally, make sure to tune into Friday's show when we preview an exciting concert coming up in the area. World-renowned violinist Midori is performing on Amelia Island in April. And she will also be a 2021 Kennedy Center honoree in May. This is what her work sounds like. We'll hear from the Amelia Island Chamber Music Festival about Midori on Friday's show. And for more good news delivered directly to your inbox, sign up for our What's Good Wednesday newsletter at WJCT.org. It goes out later today. And that's our show. Thanks so much for listening. And thanks to all of our guests and callers, along with producer Heather Schatz, director Josh Torres, news director Jessica Palumbo, and digital editor Bill Bortsfield. Keep your feedback coming. Send those emails to firstcoastconnect@WJCT.org. And if you missed any part of today's show, catch our podcast up later today wherever you like to listen. You can also download the WJCT app and listen to great content there too. I'm Melissa Ross. This is First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. We'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.